Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Aaliyah and today I'm going to tell you guys my ultimate guide to getting straight A's this semester. In this video, I'm going to touch up on 3 topics. I'm going to talk about study tips, I'm going to talk about 3 productive apps or resources I use, as well as time management tips. I just want you guys to know that I believe in these study tips in this guide so much, to the point that if you do everything that I tell you to do in this video and you don't get an A or B on your next exam, you can go ahead and comment that I'm a fraud. You can DM me, you can yell at me, you can tell everyone not to watch my videos anymore, but I doubt that's gonna happen, and that's how much I believe in my guide, because it has worked for me and has helped me improve my grades, as well as other people that I always share my tips with. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first topic is study tips. The first thing you're gonna do is, before class, you're gonna print out your lecture notes or your PowerPoints. Usually your professors will provide these, or like lecture slides, PowerPoints on the topic that you're going to discuss in class that day or the next day. What I used to do that I did not find effective at all was that I used to try to like write my PowerPoints, like the notes from the PowerPoint, to my notebook ahead of time, and I honestly found that it was not effective at all. I was never retaining any information, and also I was wasting my time, especially because I had a full, course load. Like, it just wasn't efficient. So what I started to do is work smarter, not harder. I just started to print out the lecture slides because they already provide that for you. So why am I like wasting my time and trying to copy it before class? That didn't make sense. You know what I'm talking about? I know that a lot of people suggest to read the PowerPoint before class, read the book before class. I never did that. I don't find it effective at all. What I honestly did, this might sound bad, but honestly, I just printed out the lecture notes and showed up. But I think the only thing I actually would recommend you to do is maybe just read what the PowerPoint, like the title of the PowerPoint, so you know what's going to be discussed in class. So now you're in class. Since your PowerPoint is already printed out, or it's already downloaded to your computer, your iPad, whatever you use to like take notes, since it's already like you already have it, what I want you to do is I just want you to focus throughout the lecture on just what your professor is saying, and take notes on anything that's important that your professor is saying. And how you would know what's really important is that if your professor is talking about something longer from like a minute on a topic, and your professor keeps emphasizing something, is like keeps telling you mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and he's talking about that for like 3 minutes, what I would do is that, 1, I now know that that's probably going to be on my exam. Number 2, I'm probably going to either start on my PowerPoint or just take notes on what he's saying. Okay, he said mitochondria is the power of the cell, mitochondria does this for the body, blah, 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 and just write that down next to that like lecture slide notes. So for example, for my genetics class, I would highlight anything that was like important. For example, like all populations, genotype frequency goes to allele frequency, because my professor was talking about this so much. When my professor would do examples, in class, like how does one determine if a population is in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium? And she would do an example in class about it. I would go ahead and write that example on my iPad, on my notes, so that I can see it. And this honestly helped me, because on the exam day, I would notice that she would use the same thing, but she would change up the words, right? So if your professor's spending some time on an example, then you know it's really important. So I would do that, and then I write like the step-by-step on how to do that. And during class, you want to make sure that you understand everything. If you do not understand anything that your professor is saying, don't be afraid to raise your hand and tell them, please stop, like stop, go back. I used to do that all the time, like, can you go back to like the 3 slides? What did you mean by that? I would always raise my hand, but then again, like, I'm not really scared to ask my questions. Like, I'm paying to go to school. Also, my grade's on the line, and I don't mess with my grades. So if I have to stop, the class and ask a question, I'm gonna ask my question, okay? But not a lot of people are like, bold enough to ask questions in class. So if that's not you, that's fine. After class, sometimes your professors will stay. I'll usually go to my professor and be like, hey, could you please explain, this? What did you mean by that? Can you do another example? Or I'll just show up to office hours. I'll pull up to office hours. Just kidding, I wouldn't pull up. But I'll show up to office hours and be like, hey, could you go over this example again? I'm really confused, yada, yada. Or I would email them asking. But I find that when they explain things through email, it didn't really work for me. I rather like, see them draw like in real time, and then I can pause and like, wait, why did you do that? So don't be afraid to ask questions, because you want to make sure that before you leave, you know, the class that day, not that you understand everything, but you're like, okay, I can go back to my notes and I won't be confused. That should be your goal. Your goal basically in class is to make sure you aren't confused by your lecture note. Now class is over, class is done. What you're gonna do immediately after class, not immediately obviously, because you know sometimes we have other classes that day, but after class over, whenever you have time that day, and please make time that day, what you're gonna do is you're gonna actually go with your lecture slides and you're gonna rewrite your, you know, lecture notes. This is kind of really tedious and you're just gonna get mad at me, but this honestly helped me so much. You're gonna rewrite your lecture notes into your own words and you're gonna summarize it. So like for each lecture slide, like it could be something so like they'll put like so much information on it, but the key point might be, okay, the chloroplast is where the plant is getting the energy. That's the key point of those 2 lecture slides. You don't need to know all the details. As long as you know that the chloroplast is where, you know, the plant gets its main energy, then you're fine. I hope that's right. I hope that's right. It just came to my head. I hope my information is right. I know I graduated with biology degree, but it's been some time. It's been some time. I also do when I'm summarizing my lecture notes to a separate notebook, which is honestly just to it was my GoodNotes on iPad. What else I would also do is that at the same time I would make flashcards, which I'll explain why later on in the video of why I was making flashcards. I'll make flashcards, and then once again, with the lecture notes I'm summarizing, I would also add the details that my professor was saying that I took notes on during class within it. So the next thing you're gonna do after you already summarize your notes into a notebook is you're going to practice, and I can't emphasize this enough, practice, 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 practice. If you follow me on TikTok, you guys already know. You guys ask me how I study. I keep saying practice problems, practice problems, practice problems, and I will keep emphasizing this till the day that I die. But practicing is so important. Just like learning, you know, a new sport. If you're learning basketball, are you just gonna jump and play the game right away? Like, right? The game, you're just gonna go to the game without practicing? No, you're gonna go to practice, you're gonna shoot some hoops, you're gonna practice that sport before the game so that you're prepared. That's also what you're gonna do when it comes to learning a new topic. You're gonna practice before exam day, okay? Exam day is like game day. You're gonna practice, you're gonna do a bunch of practice problems to make sure that you're familiar with the topic, you're confident, you know your information before exam day. You're not gonna go on exam day and just be surprised like, wow, like I'm confused by these questions. What? Like I can't work under pressure because I'm unfamiliar with working under pressure. Every week I would do practice problems, and I would do this on the weekends because that's where I had the most time. And I would do practice problems to test my knowledge on the information. And you can find practice problems in your book. It's usually after every chapter in your textbook. What I would do is that I would actually use my homework assignments. So my professor would always give me homework assignments, and what I would do to practice is I'll do my homework assignment without looking at my notes. So I'll just do it, you know, try to solve it, and then after I would check my work through, look at my notes. Okay, did I solve it right? Do you know what I mean? Like, what did I do? And that really helped me with gaining the information, because when I got something wrong, I would spend more time on it and see where I messed up, and then I write down that question into my notebook and then write the steps again, and I would circle it so I know, okay, I'm gonna go back to this question and I'm gonna practice with it. And it also helps you, you know, understand what information you already know and what information you need to work on a little bit more. Flashcards are also a great way to practice testing your knowledge. And so what I would do is that when I'm making my flashcards, I always put like a question. So for example, if I was in like history and I was learning about the president, I would ask myself, who is the first, you know, US Black president? And then on the back, the answer would be Obama. And I would just go through my flashcards that way, or solve this problem, and then I would solve it in my notebook and then look at the back to see if I solved it correctly. So flashcards are also a great way to practice, as well as it's really helpful because you're coming up with questions that your professors, you know, might ask during an exam, which is honestly great. When you can predict, you know, exam questions that your professor might ask you, then you start, you know, learning, you start being more successful in class, you start working, you know, smarter, not harder, because now you're predicting exams. You're able to think, huh, my professor asked questions this way, this is something I'm most likely going to expect. So then on exam day, you're already prepared because you already predicted what the questions would be. And once again, if you ever get confused on any topics, make sure to always ask your professor, go to office hours, take advantage of your school's tutoring center. I took advantage of my tutoring center so much. Like, the tutors knew every single day after my class was over that I was gonna be at the tutoring center till they close. Definitely take advantage of your school's tutoring center, the resources that they provide, as well as always go to office hours if you're ever confused. So now you have your study tips. You know what you're gonna do before class. You're gonna know what you do during class, what you do after class. Now it's time to manage your time to make sure you're not only prioritizing school, but your other obligations and your mental health. But the first thing, like I recommend, I hope you guys already have a planner. Please have a planner, okay? So you're already gonna have your planner, and I already have a time management video where I go into depth on what I do for each of my planners. So you guys can go ahead and watch that video after this one. But I also have a weekly schedule template where I track everything that I do like every week hourly, and I already attached a free one down below because I'm so amazing and I always think about you guys, and there's no string attached, so you can just go ahead and download that for free down below. Actually, there is a string attached. You have to, if you're gonna download it, you need to subscribe to my channel, and then you need to send it to like all your whole friend group, okay, and tell them to subscribe. I use this like weekly schedule template. It really helped me track everything that I had to do. The first thing that you're gonna do and what you're gonna put on your weekly schedule is you're gonna put everything that's mandatory for you to attend. So that's work, that's school classes, that's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's it. You're not gonna add any clubs, you're not gonna add hanging out with a friend. That's not mandatory for you to attend. Also, if you're not getting good grades, I might come off really mean, but you should not be in a club. Like, you should not be doing extracurriculars if you don't have at least an A or a B in your class. Why? Because you should be using that extra time that you're using in those extracurriculars and invest that into your studying, okay? The next thing that you're gonna do is you're gonna add your study time. So what I like to do is I like to plan my study time. It really helps me, you know, stay organized. It keeps me focused. And it's just really nice to just have everything planned, that I already have a designated, you know, time slot for each class on when I'm gonna study. It just keeps me, you know, sane. So I'm gonna look down because I'm reading my notes, and I really wanna make sure I'm saying the correct information. But the rule of thumb for most university is that for every non-science course, every 1 unit in that non-science course, you need to devote 2 hours of study time outside of class. And for science classes, for every 1 unit of your science class you're taking, you need to devote 3 hours outside of the class to study. I know what you guys are thinking. Hold up. I know you guys are like, Aaliyah, you're crazy. What? I'm not gonna do that. I have a life, blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm not gonna devote all that time to studying. What? This, I'm gonna burn myself. Okay, wait. Guys, wait. I'm not done. It's unrealistic. Like, there's no time, especially if you work. I personally worked 2 jobs when I was in college, and I was also in a research lab, and I also was like in other extracurriculars, so I get it. Like, there's just no time. But that's why in this video, I'm telling you guys about working smarter, not harder, okay? How are we gonna work smarter, not harder? Every person has that class, and you guys know what I'm talking about. Every person has that class you can finesse your way through. Like, you don't need to be doing so much work for it. You guys know what I'm talking about. For me, it was a lot of my, like, you know, non-science classes, like my English class. Like, sometimes, like, I had no exams for my English class, so why would I be devoting 6 hours to studying for it if there's no exam? And then, like, we would have discussion posts, and it was like, I can finesse my way through the discussion posts, and you guys know that. So obviously, like, we all have that one class where we don't actually need to study for it. It's your easy class. You don't really need to invest a lot of work into it. And so obviously, you're not going to devote, if it's 3 units, you're not going to devote 6 hours to it. For example, for my nutrition class, we always just had like discussion posts. And I know about nutrition. Like, I know candy's bad for your body. I know I shouldn't be drinking soda. I know that I need to get my servings of vegetables. And that's something I can easily just look online while I'm typing my discussion posts. You know what I'm talking about? And so for my homework for nutrition, that took me like 1 hour to do, and I was done for the week. So all those over hours that I had from those easy class, I would either invest that into my other classes that probably need more time into studying, or just invest that into my self-care, just leave that empty. I personally always study for my classes 2 weeks in advance. So most of like my heavy studying usually happens 2 weeks before, you know, my exam. I always study 2 weeks before my exam. Prior to those 2 weeks, what I'm doing is I'm just preparing my notes. So usually I would just be, you know, rewriting my notes to my, like, you know, my notebook and make sure like I have the details, and because I knew that I just wanted my notes to be so good, so when that 2 weeks period comes, when it's time for me to study for my exam, I already have my notes prepared so that I'm just studying and I'm being more efficient with it. When you're putting in your study time, make sure there's 7 days out of the week, make sure your study time is only 6 days out of the week. and I want you to leave at least one day. It can be any day. I usually leave Sundays empty, and I'll explain why in my next point. Now that we already added our study time, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add our self-care time, because self-care is so important. And honestly, you cannot be successful without taking time for yourself and taking time to breathe. Like, if you don't incorporate any self-care time to your schedule, you're literally going to get burnt out. So with the free time that I have during the week, I always add some type of self-care time. Sometimes it's not even hanging out with my friends. Sometimes it's like, okay, I know, during this time from like 7 to 9, I'm gonna do whatever I want. Sometimes it's just be me taking a nap. Sometimes it's be me watching a Netflix show, me reading like my favorite book. I do that. But in addition to the self-care time that I added during the week, for that one day that I told you guys to leave empty with no studying, I also like to add a day of doing nothing. And I usually put them on Sundays because I feel like Sundays are great reset days. And so on Sundays, I don't study, I don't do work, I just do whatever I want. Sometimes it's me doing nothing at home, sometimes it's me like hanging out with my boyfriend, making plans to hang out with my friend, but I just know that like my brain, like I'm not thinking about school during that week, and I just love devoting that one time to doing nothing every single week because it gets me excited for the week coming and it keeps my momentum going. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, I reset, keep that momentum going. I'm like, okay, let's keep working hard, keep going, working hard. I know Sunday I'm gonna have a break to do nothing, and I really like that. It really also makes school a little bit fun because school is not taking over my whole life. If you're finding that you don't have time for yourself, you don't have time to study X, Y, and Z, then you need to make sacrifices, okay? So that's some of the things I used to do. For example, there was one time I was taking biostats, OChem in a really hard bio class, and it was just so like demanding. All of them had labs, and so that semester I had to go from hanging out with my friends every single week to making the sacrifice to only hang out with them once a month, or sometimes maybe once every 3 months. But those are sacrifices that I had to make for my grades. So every time, like, you need to be really flexible and know that if you're finding that you're overwhelmed and you don't have room in your schedule, something has to go, whether it's like letting go of a club extracurricular for that semester or that month, or letting go of something else. Okay, now that we talked about time management, let's move on to productivity apps and resources that I use to help me be successful in college. So some websites and apps that I recommend for studying is, number one, there's this website called educationalplanner.com, or I think it's educationplanner.org. Something like that. I already attached it down below, so you go ahead and click that. But it's really important for you to find out what type of learner you are. And what's great about this website is you do like a self-assessment, and then it tells you the type of learner that you are, and then it tells you things that you should be doing that are tailored to your learning style that will help you to learn. Okay, so it's really important to kind of know what type of learner you are. For example, like I had a friend who had a photographic memory, and she's like, Aaliyah, just read. Like all I do is just read, the lecture slides like a book, and then I'm always good for the exam. But that probably wouldn't work for me because I don't have a photographic memory, and I'm not really like a visual learner where I can just, remember everything. I'm an auditory and tactile learner. So I need to explain things to people. I need to feel things. I need to I'm a hands-on learner, and that's how I learn. But so her advice to me didn't work. And so that's what I really like about this website, because it tells you the type of learner you are, which is important, and then tells you things that you should do that are tailored to your learning style that'll help you be successful in school. The next things are flashcards. Some apps that I use for flashcards, I use Anki, which is a website and it's also an app, and it's a spaced repetition app. And what's so cool about this spaced repetition is that spaced repetition is actually scientifically proven to actually help with retention, memory retention, and information. So I love using Anki. And then there's also Quizlet. I think you guys are all familiar with Quizlet, and they also have a spaced repetition feature now, but I think it's like an extra price that you have to pay monthly. So I just recommend maybe you should just do Anki, because online it's free, but the app for your phone is actually $25. But it's honestly, it's worth it. And guys, you know me, I'm really about my money. So if I tell you something's worth it, it's worth it. It has helped me so much. For practice problems, I use easynotecards.com. I love this website so much. I used the website all throughout college, and all you do is you just type in your class textbook, and practice problems come up for it. And it's just so nice. You get to practice, you can test your knowledge, you can click on things to see if it's right or not, you see the right answer, and it's just great practice. And then of course I already told you guys about using your books at the end of the chapters to see it. So for practice problem, easynotecards.com is a great place to find practice problems from your book. For time management, if you get distracted easily, I use this free app called Flora, and what it does like a whole Pomodoro technique. And so you just put the timer of how much you want to study, and let's say like you get distracted, you want to go on your phone and you exit off the app will actually remind you, hey, go back. If you don't go back, your tree is gonna die, because as you're studying, you get to grow a tree. And then obviously it's kind of that like unconscious, like, oh, I don't want my tree to die. And then like you also can add friends, so they'll see how many like trees you've killed because you weren't focused. So I kind of like that app. Another app that I use for my computer, it's called Self Control, and what you do is that you just download it to your computer and you put a designated timer of how much you want to be studying. And with this app, you can block out like social media websites. You just copy the link and you put the social media website that you don't want to go on during that study time, and then you click start the timer, and then you start studying. And if you try to go on those like apps, it won't let you. It will say like Safari can't open this browser, and I love it so much. It really keeps you like in check. For self-care, some apps that I use is I use the gratitude app. It's free. You can journal, you can do a vision board, it has affirmation. And what I like about it is that it just allows you to stay grateful. Staying grateful really, helps me take care of myself. It helps me live in the present moment. I also use Headspace for meditation. You can also use YouTube and just look up guided meditation. But with Headspace, it allows you to do, I think it's free, I just use the free version, but you can just, meditation for stress, meditation for sleeping. And so I like doing that. It's meditation. I like to do meditation for like 30 minutes a day. Really allows me to check in with myself and see how I'm feeling. So that's all the tips that I have for you guys today. I definitely want to continue doing more videos, giving you guys college advice, school advice, study tips, and all that. So if you have any questions or you want me to touch up on any topics, please comment down below or message me on Instagram. Follow me on all my social media accounts because I also post study tips and advice there. So make sure to follow me there so you guys can see that in like shorter forms. And I'm more like, I post there like daily, like 3 times a week, rather on YouTube I only post once a week, or I try to post once a week. So yes, but yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.